Burkina Faso make headlines as President Traore takes a step into the aviation industry. I'm a AI presenter for JBD-TV. Remember to subscribe, like, and share.
Within days, strange videos began flooding the internet. Claims of secret jet factories, Burkina-built aircraft, and a company called Burki Air Boeing. Is Burkina Faso quietly building its air force? Or is this the biggest illusion the continent's ever seen? Let's find out. Parades, no jets screaming overhead, no Western media in attendance. But the moment Air Burkina's new Embraer 170 rolled onto the Ouagadougou runway, a quiet line had been crossed. For the first time in its history, Burkina Faso wasn't renting its wings, it owned them. This was not a diplomatic gift, a leased vessel, or a hand-me-down. This was property, national property, and it sent shockwaves through the continent's silent aviation corridors. Behind closed doors, insiders knew what this meant. For decades, Air Burkina had relied on a patchwork of foreign leases, outdated fleets, and bureaucratic dependence. The airline had flown aircraft built and financed by European hands. Maintenance contracts, spare parts, flight management, all externalized. Burkina Faso had never truly controlled the sky above its land, until now. The decision to purchase a brand new Embraer 170, a modern twin-engine regional jet designed in Brazil, was more than an economic strategy. It was political defiance. A move orchestrated under the command of Captain Ibrahim Traore, whose government has prioritized sovereignty, self-reliance, and liberation from Western systems. In his speeches, he has often spoken of reclaiming not just the ground beneath Burkinabe feet, but the air above it too. The timing couldn't have been more critical. West Africa is reconfiguring itself. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have turned their backs on France, challenging colonial-era agreements, refusing debt traps, and forming military and economic pacts. Owning a commercial jet, for many, seemed like a minor detail in that geopolitical shift. But it wasn't minor. To own a jet is to own a route. It means you decide where it flies, what it carries, and who it serves. For Burkina Faso, this acquisition opened the door to independent routes between Sahelian states, bypassing traditional West African airline monopolies and Eurocentric air hubs. It meant cheaper cargo flights for mining exports, quicker medical evacuations, and regional tourism that didn't need a stopover in Paris. And symbolically, it struck deep into the heart of the dependency model that has long defined African aviation. While other airlines struggled under ballooning lease debts and foreign control, Burkina Faso had quietly planted a flag in the jet age. But it was what followed next that turned this quiet breakthrough into something stranger, almost surreal. As news of the Embraer purchase trickled across Africa, a wave of digital content erupted, not from official state channels, but from TikTok accounts, Telegram groups, and obscure YouTube creators. They weren't celebrating the jet itself. They were claiming something much bigger, that Burkina Faso wasn't just buying planes, it was building them. Suddenly, the Embraer story became fuel for a larger fire. Edits appeared showing advanced aircraft with Burkinabe flags, underground hangars, and Burki Air logos stamped across futuristic wings. Some claimed a new aerospace program had been launched in total secrecy. Others said Traore had signed deals with Iran, China, or even Russia to transfer aerospace technology into the heart of the Sahel. And just like that, a simple aircraft purchase became the seed of a myth, a powerful one that blurred the lines between reality and imagination. The jet was real, but what about everything else? Could a single purchase spark an entire industry, or was something deeper and more deliberate unfolding behind the stories began? But they weren't coming from journalists, diplomats, or even official government channels. They were coming from anonymous accounts, slick videos with dramatic music, grainy factory shots, and slogans like, "Africa rises from the skies." They all pointed to one name that no one had ever heard before, Burki Air. According to the videos, Burki Air wasn't just an airline. It was Burkina Faso's secret aerospace project, operating behind a curtain of revolutionary pride and military silence. One clip showed a group of young black engineers walking beside what appeared to be a stealth fighter. Another claimed a hangar in the outskirts of Ouagadougou was assembling the nation's first indigenous passenger jet. Some said President Traore himself had greenlit the program under a broader initiative known as Traore Tech, a rumored industrial strategy for technological sovereignty. The narrative was intoxicating. Burkina Faso had secretly leapfrogged into the aerospace age while the world wasn't looking. But try to verify any of it, and the trail collapses. There's no business registration under the name Burki Air, no announcements from the Ministry of Transport or the Ministry of Defense, no satellite images showing aircraft production zones, no press coverage, local or international, confirming even the existence of a prototype. And yet the content kept coming. One TikTok showed what appeared to be a fighter jet taking off with the Burkina flag digitally overlaid on the tail. Another presented a CEO of Burki Air, speaking from a dark room about revolutionizing African mobility. His face was blurred, his voice distorted. No credentials, no history, just fire and fantasy. Most disturbingly, some of these videos were racking up millions of views across Francophone Africa, stirring a growing belief that Burkina Faso had done the impossible, that it had built its plane, in silence, without help, under siege. It wasn't just clickbait, it became a movement. Supporters called it the Sky Sovereignty Doctrine. Hashtags like Daba Burki Air, on Traore and Africa Can Fly started trending, even drawing attention from Pan-African influencers, ex-military personnel, and disillusioned engineers in neighboring countries. And here's where it gets stranger. Not a single government official publicly denied the claims. That silence, strategic or accidental, only fueled the fire. Could it be real? Was this deliberate ambiguity, a military disinformation campaign? Or was the government simply enjoying the patriotic surge, letting a viral myth become a symbol of national rebirth? Some analysts believe this is propaganda by design, a clever psychological play. In an age where narratives are powerful, the illusion of aircraft production might be more powerful than actual production itself. The message? Burkina Faso doesn't need your approval. It's building a future you can't see yet. Others warn that this is dangerous myth-making, that it could invite scrutiny, sanctions, or even sabotage if international actors believe advanced weapons systems are secretly in development. And if the claims are false, then it risks discrediting real progress being made elsewhere in the aviation sector. Yet for the average Burkinabe watching from their phone screen, the truth barely matters. What matters is that for the first time in generations, the image of Burkina Faso isn't one of poverty, war, or dependence. It's one of engineers, jets, and the sky. So if Burki Air doesn't exist, who made all this content? Who's funding the myth? And what purpose does it serve? To understand that, we need to look at what's happening in the sky right now, not in fiction, but in cold, hard flight data. Here's history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. While the mystery of Burki Air floats somewhere between fantasy and strategy, another aviation transformation is quietly, but very tangibly, unfolding above Burkina Faso. One that's not AI-generated, not exaggerated, and certainly not imaginary. It's the helicopter revolution, and it's changing how the country moves, works, and wages war. Forget jets for a moment. The real muscle in Burkina Faso's airspace today spins with rotor blades, and it began long before viral clips and secret factories, back in 2019, when a bold new aviation firm took shape in Ouagadougou, Faso Aircraft Services, FAS. In a region where road infrastructure is unreliable and distances are vast, FAS understood the one truth that most African logistics ignore. The fastest way to serve the nation is to fly over it. Starting with a modest fleet that included Eurocopter Dolphin N3S and Squirrel models, FAS carved out a unique role, serving remote mining hubs, conducting urgent medical evacuations, and offering executive charters to areas inaccessible by car or plane. Within 2 years, FAS wasn't just a novelty. It was flooding trapped workers in the gold-rich eastern provinces. It was FAS choppers that pulled them out. When international NGOs needed emergency access to conflict zones, they didn't call on the UN. They called Faso's helicopters. But what few noticed was that this was the first time a Burkinabe company had offered sustained local helicopter services without outsourcing everything to Europe or South Africa. The pilots were being trained locally. Maintenance was increasingly done in-country, and their operational tempo matched, if not outpaced, some foreign contractors in the region. Meanwhile, a lesser-known but crucial development was unfolding quietly in the background. The IAS Group, a major aviation provider from Côte d'Ivoire, had established a formal presence in Burkina Faso, partnering with FAS to expand both training and flight coverage. With IAS's backing, Faso's rotor network grew more reliable, cost-effective, and regional in scope. Even more significantly, Germany's global helicopter service GHS entered the scene. Unlike the others, GHS didn't come for commercial profit. It came to operate humanitarian missions, evacuations from conflict zones, delivery of critical supplies, and medical airlifts. GHS helicopters now fly sorties deep into areas cut off by armed insurgency, where no plane can land and no truck can pass. But what does all this mean? It means that while the idea of building jets may still be a dream, Burkina Faso is already mastering the sky in another form, with helicopters that are saving lives, powering industries, and slowly building the infrastructure and expertise required for a future aviation industry. It's also a training ground. Every pilot, technician, and logistics coordinator trained under FAS or IAS is part of a new generation of Burkinabe aviation professionals. These are the very people who, if the country ever does build planes, will be the ones capable of flying them, fixing them, and managing their operations. And for a country facing internal conflict, helicopters are not a luxury. They're a strategic necessity. The Burkinabe Armed Forces now operate Mi-17s, AS-350s, and AW-139s, used to strike enemy camps, resupply remote bases, and patrol borders no car could reach. They're not manufactured locally, but they're being flown, maintained, and deployed by Burkinabe hands. That alone marks a tectonic shift from past dependency. So the question becomes, if helicopters are working, if they're already transforming how Burkina Faso operates, then what's the next logical step? The answer lies in scale. The more the nation flies, the more it needs to own the systems behind the flight, the parts, the training, the tech. And that takes us deeper into a quieter, longer-term story. One not told through viral videos, but through procurement deals, tech partnerships, and industrial ambition. Burkina Faso's helicopter operations have proven one thing: flight without Western dependence is possible, at least in part. But owning aircraft, even helicopters that serve the nation with precision and urgency, is still a far cry from building them. The leap from operator to manufacturer isn't just a technological transition. It's an industrial transformation, and it requires the very thing that neither viral videos nor dreams can fabricate: infrastructure. And right now, that's what Burkina Faso is missing. Manufacturing even basic aircraft components like landing gear, fuel valves, or composite panels requires a labyrinth of specialized factories, KID design labs, robotic assembly lines, and most importantly, certified engineers and aeronautical regulatory frameworks. These aren't built overnight. They are cultivated over decades, often with support from established aerospace nations. So far, Burkina Faso has no aerospace industrial base, no metallurgy labs producing aviation-grade aluminum, no known aviation-focused engineering universities offering advanced composites programs, no domestic suppliers are producing avionics or turbine components, and no national regulatory body is qualified to certify airframes as airworthy by international standards. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. What's taking place quietly behind the media noise is perhaps even more strategic. The Traore government has begun laying industrial groundwork in other sectors, in ways that could eventually support a broader aviation dream. Take energy, for example. In the last year alone, Burkina Faso has signed multiple MOUs with Russia and Rwanda on nuclear cooperation, not for weapons, but for civilian energy and research capacity. Nuclear reactors, once constructed, can power more than just cities. They can power industrial zones. The government has also ramped up investment in agro-processing, mining tech, and domestic gold refining, creating a network of machine-heavy sectors that demand logistics, engineering expertise, and domestic fabrication capabilities. These sectors could become foundations for an aviation supply chain if guided correctly. Engineers working on gold refinery pumps today may be the same technicians manufacturing landing gear hydraulic systems tomorrow, if the educational and industrial conversion happens. Then there's the question of partnerships. While the West has distanced itself from the Sahel, Burkina Faso has leaned into alternative alliances. Countries like Iran, Russia, and China, each with advanced aviation sectors, have existing programs for aerospace knowledge transfer to friendly nations. Iran, for instance, has supported Venezuela in UAV development and military drone production under heavy sanctions. Russia has long collaborated with Algeria and Egypt on aircraft servicing and pilot training. China, too, has flooded Africa with low-cost civilian aircraft and drone tech, opening doors to joint venture assembly programs. If Burkina Faso is to enter the aviation manufacturing game, it likely won't be alone. It will piggyback off one of these nations' blueprints, assembling kits, building subcomponents, and gradually acquiring knowledge over a decade. That's how Brazil did it with Embraer, entered the drone market. Even India's aerospace sector began as a licensed assembly for Soviet MiGs. The final ingredient is education. There's a quiet push underway to reorient Burkina Faso's universities and polytechnics toward applied sciences. Some reports suggest new scholarships are being offered for aeronautics abroad. The establishment of technical schools focused on mechanics, metalwork, and electronics is slowly growing in tandem with Traore's vision of national self-sufficiency. So no, there is no hangar in Ouagadougou quietly churning out stealth bombers. But yes, the architecture that makes something like that possible someday is beginning to appear, piece by piece, across energy, education, and industry. And that brings us full circle. Because maybe the viral myth of Burki Air wasn't completely false. Maybe it was a projection, a psychological prototype for a future not yet born, but carefully planned. When a nation starts believing a myth, it doesn't stay a myth for long. Burkina Faso's Burki Air phenomenon, while debunked by experts and disconnected from any tangible aircraft production, has nonetheless planted something real and unshakable: a public mandate for industrial greatness. What began as digital fiction is fast becoming a political force, a cultural expectation, and potentially a national obligation. The demand is no longer abstract. Across forums, community radios, and university campuses in Ouagadougou and Bobo Dioulasso, youth movements are echoing a single question: if not now, when? The images of jets and engineers, fake or not, have inspired something far more powerful than technology: imagination. And once that spreads, it becomes dangerous to ignore. Captain Ibrahim Traore, who has already positioned himself as the face of anti-imperial African self-determination, now finds himself at a crossroads. It was one thing to promise gold refineries, agricultural sovereignty, and foreign troop expulsion. But aviation, manufacturing jets, that's a different league entirely. Yet the myth has now made it personal. It has linked the image of Traore with the idea of a modern aerospace nation, whether he asked for it or not. And this is where myth transforms into political dignity, quite like owning the sky. Land can be claimed, gold can be stolen, but air, controlled air, is freedom at its highest. The myth of Burki Air gives Burkina Faso, instead of poverty, hope of a future where Africans are not just passengers, but builders.